as I was writing this and studying for this drop, I had a particular audience in mind, and it appears that that audience is not here. And I said to myself, oh boy, what am I going to do? And then I got to thinking about it a little bit different. Maybe the audience that need here is here, because you know what tomorrow is? Tomorrow is Father's Day. And as we go back and as we look at God's Word, as we look through the Bible of what God established, and He established a home, and in that home He established a head, and that head of the home happens to be the husband, the head of the house. And tomorrow, most Americans will celebrate Father's Day, and a day where their children honor their fathers. And I said to myself, to be a good father, you know, maybe the guy needs to be a good husband. Maybe there's got to be an attitude of goodness as the head of the house, husband and father, to have the home that God would have us to live in. And Father's Day is where the privilege of being a father comes to light. And that is a privilege. It is the time to bring out the good and not even the bad so much of a father, but remember the good things that he may not do. And a very vast number, and I mean a very vast number, is the fact that the husband or the father is a husband first. And we know, and I know, the world, you know, that a lot of times people get that reversed, but primarily a man is a husband before he becomes a father. Before he takes on the responsibility of children, he has to have the responsibility of a wife, and that he does that well enough to be able to bring children into the world. And I know a relationship where a gentleman, and so it's not always true, a gentleman that I know took on 2 children that were not his. He dated their mother for a few short times, and they just weren't compatible. But she had 2 children. She was divorced, limited income, and those children had needs. And he just took it upon himself to help raise those 2 children. And when they needed something, they called him, and he helped them through school, high school, bought them cars, just like a father would do, and helped pay for their college. And what is interesting, early on in this relationship with those 2 children, the mother started dating another gentleman and married him. So they had a stepfather, but at the same time, they would call him their adopted daddy, because he loved those children that much. And so that's rare, but that happened to be a true statement. And so normally the fact of being the husband before you are the father is a norm, but it's not in all cases. Rabbi Paul, writing to the Messianic Synagogue in Ephesus, Paul wrote, he says in his letter, and Paul, when he writes, he only wrote for 1 or 2 reasons. Normally it was giving some instructions that he had forgot to give them, or that someone had contacted him about a problem, or some further instructions that they needed. So Paul wrote specific letters to specific synagogues, Messianic synagogues, which is called churches, for specific reasons. And if you read, and matter of fact, I would like you to read the whole book later, but what I want you to do today is turn into Ephesians 5:22 through 33. And this is very familiar. And I hope today to be able to teach some women some things that they don't know about being women, okay? And some husbands about being husbands, and daddies about being daddies. I think you'll like this. It says in verse 22, wives, submit to your own husband as you submit to the Lord. For husbands is the head of the wife, even as Christ is the head of the church, and his body, and is himself its Savior. Now, as the church submits to Christ, so also wives should submit in everything to their husbands. And husbands now, love your wives as Christ loves the church and gave himself for it. That is a big command. Okay? That he might sanctify her, having cleansed her by the washing of water with the word, so that he might present the church to himself in splendor, without spot or wrinkle, or any such thing, that she might be holy, without blemish. In the same way, husbands should love their wives as their own bodies, as themselves. Love themselves. He who loves his wife loves himself. That parallel was love the Lord thy God all our heart, thy soul, and might, and love thyself as much first, and then love other people. So a man needs to love himself. For no one ever hated his own flesh, but nourished and cherished it, just as Christ does the church, because we are members of his body. Therefore a man shall leave his father and his mother, and hold fast to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. The mystery is profound, and I am saying it refers to Christ and the church. However, let each of you love his wife as himself, and let the wife see that she respects her husband. But today I want to focus on the husband and what he's supposed to do, and the benefits that the wife would receive, and then after she receives, the benefits that he may receive in this family, in this union, in this marriage. First, though, I want to explain something very important, which explains why sometimes it is hard to be a good husband. It appears that there was a very, very righteous man living in California who wanted to vacation in Hawaii. But he had a problem in that he was terrified of airplanes and flying, and he could not fly, and he would have to go by ship, and it would take such a long time that he didn't have enough time to go, but he wanted to go to Hawaii on vacation, and him being a righteous and a devout man, decided that he would pray about it, and he would talk to God, and he would ask God in a very sincere prayer if he would build a bridge from California to Hawaii. And God heard his prayer, and he thought about it, and he decided that what he would do would go talk to the man in person. And he said to this man, he said, do you understand the magnitude of your request? For me to build a bridge from California to Hawaii, I would have to put in islands and spans and islands, and on those islands would have to have gasoline, restaurants, hotels, and to run those things I would have to have families, and if I have families and people employed, I would have to have schools, and I would literally have to build towns on every one of these islands where these bridges would connect to get to Hawaii. And not to mention, you realize that there's shipping lanes and stuff, and I would have to have drawbridges and people to run it. Said I would just about have to build a whole straight continent all the way across the Pacific from Hawaii to California to fulfill your wish, your prayer. And the man said finally dawned on him what he was asking God to do. So he said, well, since I'm talking to God, he said, God, would you help me with something that I feel is actually more important? And he said, could you help me understand my wife so I could be a better husband to her? And God contemplated for just a minute or two, and he said, now, that highway, did you want a 6 or did you want an 8-lane highway? So, and it would be easier for God to do that, and it would be able to let him understand his wife. And the problem is that men don't understand women, and women don't understand men. And a friend of ours, Miss Hall, said the way to get along is that men be men and women be women, and don't ask those stupid questions and you'll be okay. You're never going to figure it out. But to do that, we have to communicate even. Even though our thoughts and our ideas and our reasoning and stuff and our wants and desires are different, we still have to communicate. And we must be able to convey our thoughts, our desires, and our feelings. And for the most part, to do that, we use words. And words require definitions, and the understanding of the definition has to be the same. Now, I'll give you a good example. Shopping is a good example. I shop. I go to Lowe's and I get a light. Because I needed a light fixture to put in my shop. I said, Connie, you want to go with me? She said, yes. We're going to go shopping. We end up stopping at about 3 different stores before we could get there. That was shopping. She had to go here. And even at Lowe's, she went into the garden section, she went into the paint section, she went here, she went there. But we call it shopping. But I wanted to go get one thing, go home, and while she was there, she said, we'll get this, and we'll stop at this store, we'll stop at that store, so we ended up going out. So the definition of shopping has to be the same so that we understand. Now, so the parties involved have to have the identical knowledge and understanding and the intent of the word to be able to work together in harmony. So when you have a word in the family, in a marriage, the definition has to be the same for that word or there will be miscommunication. Now, matter of fact, those are the rules that you play the game by. And Paul in these verses expects 2 aspects or duties of both husband and wife. The first one he said is, wives, submit to your husband as unto the Lord. Husband, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her, the church. Now, here's what you need to understand. When a wife obeys her husband, she is fulfilling the greatest need for her husband. I want you to catch that. When she obeys, she is fulfilling his greatest need. It's very simple. He wants to be respected. Not so much obedience as it much as respect. But when a husband loves his wife, he fulfills her greatest need, and that need is what? What is the greatest need that a woman has? To be secure. To be secure. When he loves his wife, it is to make his wife feel secure. And with those 2 thoughts in your mind to consider, let's move on to the husband. And no matter what you have read or what you have learned, and this is for the men, what you have been taught, and no matter by whom you have been taught, and you have learned from, this information provided by Rabbi Paul is the final say. So you hear men, back the uncles and the daddies and the brothers and the neighbors and the guys they work with all tell these young men about being husbands and getting married and what they're supposed to do and all. And you know what? That is what taught men to be what men are today. And that's not what. The number one deal is to love your wife and make her feel secure. Love to a man is not just a state of mind. Love to a man is an act of will. For he decides to do that. It is something he decides, I have decided to love. I have decided that this is what I want to do and this is what I'm going to do. And that is why God says, and his commandment for men is to love his wife. He is to make a decision to take action to fulfill the commandment of God. So a man that says he loves you, he has decided to do that. And that means he must choose. And most men look at love this way. I bring home a paycheck. That's work, that's action. I say I love you occasionally. I go to the effort to say I love you. That's an action that I do. Have intimate relationship when he wants to. That is an action that he wants to do. Avoid converting with other women. He chooses to separate himself from other women. That is a choice and an action that he does. To avoid domestic chores. You know, how many times you going to walk by that trash can before you pick it up and carry it to the garbage? It's been sitting there for an hour and you walk by it twice. Why don't you avoid that? That's a man. It's normal. What they do. Avoid child care. Can't you hear the baby crying? Don't you know it's time for a bottle? Don't you go carry the kids out and go play with them? Those are actions. And complains when a wife is not catering to himself. That's what men do. When men are not catering, women are not catering to the wife. Many men, in the name of control, they criticize their wife as a way of control, and sometimes, though, it is for seeking respect from their wives. That's what they're wanting, you know. And that's not to justify it, but that's exactly what they're doing. And these are descriptions of husbands who have no idea how to love their wives. These are things that they just do. Okay? The Bible commandment of a man to love his wife consisted of what is the 4 P's. Has anybody got any idea what the 4 P's are, ladies? The first one is a husband is to prefer her. The next one, he is to provide for her. He is to protect her. And he is to be passionate for her. If a man does those things, if he does those 4 P's, his wife will trust him, she will believe in him, and she will be at peace with him, and she will feel safe, and she will feel secure, and she will obey him. So the answer to a happy home is a good father starts with husbands to love their wives. That's the secret to a happy home. And prefer is this, and prefer her. In every marriage I perform, I always say to the husband, you have chosen her. You prefer her. Of all the women in the whole wide world, you prefer her. You chose her. Did you not? You have chosen her freely, and because you have chosen her freely, that you prefer her, I continue with this marriage ceremony. And when we say prefer her, we are saying above all the others and all other things. And that's what men don't understand. I look back after I did the studying on this, and I feel sorry for what I've done to Connie sometime. I won't need to repent. You know, you prefer her over your mother, men. You prefer her over your hobbies, your job, your career, your friend, and even your personal likes and your dislikes. She is number one in your life. Well, what about God? Well, you even prefer her over your children. Because one day those children are going to leave the nest and you're still going to have her. So you prefer her. So what about God? Well, you prefer her. And if you treat her with preference, she will submit to you, and your God will be her God, and your godly life will be her godly life. So you provide for her. It's not just money or even a house. You provide with the wife things and the wife's security. It means where she feels secure. If you will go back and you will study history, you heard of a dowry. What is a dowry? It was a dowry, something that a woman brought with her. It was her security. It was her money to bail out on. I don't know the name of the movie, but it was John Wayne in Ireland with the red-headed gal, except he was going to marry and all that kind of stuff. And she bitterly fought her brother tooth and nail to get her dowry, what was supposed to come to her, because that was her security. I was talking with a guy not too long ago, said that whenever he was single, he lived in a little small mobile home. He had a bed, he had a kitchen table and a chair. He had some dishes and pots and pans and a chair to sit in. And so when he got married, when his wife moved in, said she brought more stuff he had all together, and luckily they had a room they could store it in, but eventually they had to move to a bigger house because what she brought with her was her stuff. And her stuff was her security. She had to have her stuff. He said they were married 50-something years, and after she passed on, she still had that same stuff, although they never used it, but it was her stuff. And a woman has to have her stuff. She had to have her security. Those are things, are tangible things that a woman has to hold on. She has to keep them as the years go by, and these securities that a woman has to increase. And it provides her the security needs. And if you do not provide a woman with her security needs, and I'm talking about my wife, I know the stuff that she has, and I said, okay, I understand, that's fine. Then she won't, if you don't do it, a man don't do it, a woman won't be happy at all. And there's something in her that we don't understand, men don't understand, that women have to have those securities. And protect her. And this blew my mind. When you start talking about protecting your wife, is when you use the term protect her, exactly what I'm referring to. Well, right off the bat, we want to protect the home, a home security system, an alarm, a weapon, a home security system, I call that. And you want to protect her from her bad guys breaking in the house and robbing her and hurting her. You want to protect her when she goes to the mall, that she's secure, she knows how to look around and look for trouble and run, and how to fight somebody off and scream and holler at the police, or give her a telephone, or whatever you have to do. And you make sure that her car is ready to go, and it is safe for her to travel in. And what you have to do is, men fail to secure her in other ways. Let me give you an example I had never thought about. Do men really consider unselfishly what would happen to his family should he get killed? How many men do you know run around saying, well, if I get killed, who's going to take care of my wife, and who's going to take care of my children? Oh, she's young, maybe she'll get remarried. But that's not what it's about. A lot of women don't want to get remarried. Some do, some don't. But how about this? Hobbies like golf or fishing is one thing, but how about hobbies like skydiving or race cars is another? I was a volunteer fireman for over 20 years. I was reserve deputy for sheriff for about 10 years, and during that time, I went into blazing houses with a fire with just the house totally engulfed. My wife sitting home. What if I'd have got killed? As a volunteer, no money, no insurance. No, nothing. I was a deputy sheriff, and I got shot at. The bullet went right by my ear. I felt the bullet go by my ear. I never thought, well, what would happen to Connie? What would happen to my boys? I never thought about it. Because I was doing my unselfish thing that I wanted to do. Men don't think about that. Well, see, what was her security? That's the deal. Where would her security go? I'll be dead. And put her in a position that she's got to find some other kind of security. Some other, her security is gone. And I never thought about what would happen if something really happened to me. Oh no. How about being overweight, bad health, and not taking care of yourself? How about smoking or drinking and driving? And the conditions of a car, and the mechanical is operable, is it safe, and that list goes on. Men must live their lives and be men. But they can have to accept their protector mode seriously and try to relieve their wife of worries and distress of what's going to happen. That is financially even. If that car breaks down, do we have money to fix it? Do we have insurance? Is she secure? That is a man and a husband's responsibility to relieve her of that. I've got this. Everything is okay. This is covered. Then explain it to her so she will know what's going to happen. So she don't have to worry about it at night. Well, oh my gosh, we don't have this, or we don't have that, or what are we going to do here if this goes wrong? Be passionate for her. That's the last one. Men know how to reproduce, but very few understand sensual or romance. They understand how to say I love you and send a few flowers, which is very basic, but few men know how to go beyond that. And to be a passionate husband, a man must dedicate himself to being his wife's lover forever, realizing that there's no other. So he puts his effort into pleasing his wife and making her happy. There's an old saying, if a man gives his wife 15 minutes of real passion romance, he will receive a month worth of pleasure beyond his imagination. And this, my friend, is what God has intended. Man has to take his wife's needs into account and not just his. He is to praise her, lift her up, let her know he is hers, and ensure her that all the security she needs he has provided. And if you think these, if you do these things, if men do these things, God says she will gladly submit and obey because she is secure. And man must remember the 4 P's: to prefer his wife over all other women, to provide for her, he is to protect her, and he is to be passionate for her. With these things in place, you, the man, will be the head of a happy, godly home, and you will be a wonderful father because you are a wonderful husband, because when you're providing for the wife, you're providing for your children. You're providing for the home. And at the head of the house, it is your responsibility to make sure that that home is secure. Can you just imagine how many women go to bed at night knowing or not knowing what tomorrow's going to be like because they don't know what their husband's not doing what he's supposed to do? I'm talking to a young girl the other day. She's having support in the family because her husband said he don't want to work anymore for a while. He just wants to stay home and lollygag for a while. Highly talented. He don't want to work. All the burden's on her. And he wants her to be happy. He wants her to feel good. He wants the family. And he is dialing away his first 40 years, or the 20 to 40 years old. From the time you go to work, you've got a few years to build your home, your retirement, your job, your seniority, everything to make something out of it. And during these 20 years, he's sitting around doing nothing. And she's supposed to be happy. She's supposed to be this loving, friendly, kind wife, and she don't know the next morning where she's going to have groceries on the table to feed her children. No, that's not what husbands do. You see, if a man cannot make his wife feel secure, he is falling down. If he cannot put himself and his personal needs in the back and say, now I'm a man and what counts is in front of me is my wife and my children that I have produced. And that doesn't mean he has to die, lay down and not go fishing and all. But he got to have enough sense not to run his boat 100 miles an hour out in the middle of a storm too. It doesn't mean that he needs to go out and fish and he needs to put his life jacket on. It does mean that he needs to go at a reasonable time and come home at a reasonable time. It means that he has to think about someone besides himself to be the husband that he should be. That will make the happy home, and that will make a very happy Father's Day. Amen and amen.